Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Susan Neal Fraser has returned to the Supreme Court in her fight to win an appeal against her murder conviction. Today, a former Victoria police detective turned true crime writer gave evidence, telling the court of Tasmania's underworld who he heard is responsible for the killing and his interactions with Megan Vass, a homeless girl whose DNA was found on the yacht.
Susan Neal Fraser continues to fight to clear her name, convicted of her partner Bob Chappell's murder after he went missing from their yacht off Sandy Bay in 2009. Today, the court hearing from Colin McLaren, a police officer turned true crime writer and maker of documentaries, including one about the JFK assassination.
It's about the truth and supplying a definitive answer to the American people.
He told the court he was hired by Eve Ash as a writer, author, consultant and producer. Within a short period of time, he said, he was fascinated with Neal Fraser's case. Mr McLaren saying he door-knocked the area, spoke to original witnesses and new ones. One of the people, Karen Keefe, in a video recording played to court, relaying what he says she told him. 3 people broke into the yacht and they were startled to find Bob there. Paul Rowe killed Bob Chappell. Megan Vass was there and she saw it happen. Mr McLaren told the court he met with Miss Vass at a Hobart hotel. His evidence that she said what happened on that boat has haunted her. She had, I think, some genuine remorse. Mr McLaren said he helped draft a document for Miss Vass that went on to form part of a sworn affidavit, admitting she was on the yacht. Megan Vass had previously told these hearings she was pressured into signing that by another person, completely denying any knowledge of what happened on the yacht. The courtroom was packed with supporters today, but they drew the ire of the judge when they reacted to certain evidence with laughing and scoffing. Justice Brett warned if they didn't stop, he'd empty the gallery. The marathon case continues tomorrow in what could be the final day of hearings. Michael Breen, 7 Tasmanian News.
Another day of cooler temperatures has brought some relief for firefighters, but blazes continue to break containment lines across the state. Authorities warn predicted rain will not be enough to extinguish the raging fires, which have already burnt through 200,000 hectares of land, getting within 200 metres of properties in the Central Highlands just last night.
An overcast sky sits over Geeveston, cooler weather across the state a welcome respite. But the constant sound of helicopters overhead a reminder of bushfires just kilometres away.
We're making good progress and we're going to take the opportunity over the next few days to ensure that we can put all our efforts into ensuring these fires don't continue to grow.
All interest is on Thursday, where a trough extends over the state with a low pressure system. We are expecting to see some rain statewide on Thursday morning.
No fires left burning at emergency level, but watch and act warnings still in place in the Huon Valley and Central Highlands. The coming rain's not enough to extinguish fires completely, authorities warning they remain unpredictable.
We call it the witching hour. Between sort of 5 and 7 we're seeing this really unusual fire behaviour where our crews are reporting increased fire activity.
Crews still concerned about a fire at Gel River and a blaze at Britton Swamp near Smithton flaring up quickly.
Crews are continuing to work on that one as well. It's doing a little bit of movement in a southeasterly direction, but we're confident we'll get that under control as well.
For many farmers, it's been an anxious wait, crops and stock at risk.
The amount of resources that some farmers are putting in is quite substantial, and without that the TFS would find that the demand on their resources would be much greater than it has been.
Smoke damage and flare-ups are concern.
There's a lot of dry standing pasture in some places of the state, and again, an ember attack on those would be devastating.
Despite a weekend of rainfall ahead, crews warning the fires will burn for weeks to come. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
The fight over the future of a rusting rail line in the state's northeast is far from over, despite a state government peace deal. Both supporters for heritage rail and bike paths took their arguments to an upper house inquiry today, with one side vowing not to accept a compromise.
Rusting with neglect but hot property. Endless argument seems to be the only destination for Tasmania's old northeast rail line.
Well, we'd like to see the corridor used all the way from Launceston to Scottsdale as a rail trail.
A rail can only run on a railway line. Bikes can really go anywhere.
Today, those arguments came here.
It's the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
An upper house inquiry into the line's future. Last year, the state government came up with a compromise. Lilydale to Scottsdale could belong to the bikes, while Lilydale to Coldwater Creek would be full steam ahead for rail. But train supporters want the government on board all the way.
It's ridiculous. The current situation of cutting the line in half is a Solomon-like act of wisdom, but it makes absolutely no commercial sense whatsoever. Heritage Rail is the only option.
This whole thing's been so divisive, especially out in the Lilydale area, in the northeast. We think the government has said, well, this is the way we're going to do it, and I think we should get on and do it now.
Rail supporters say they've also raised $2.5 million. They've even restored carriages. Bike trail developer Dorset Council was initially granted $1.4 million for the plan. They'll give their evidence when the inquiry meets in Scottsdale tomorrow. It's estimated the project has now been delayed by at least 6 months, so there's no light at the end of the tunnel just yet. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian researchers have uncovered an alarming warning for our ocean's ecosystem, with a 2-year study revealing a vital food source for our marine life is increasingly under threat. But the good news is researchers have a plan to help.
On the east coast's ocean floor, divers lay an artificial reef. Their testing ground for a groundbreaking study. Over 2 years, they've monitored the health of kelp, a type of seaweed integral to the ecosystem.
They're the base of the food chain. They create the habitat, but they're also food for a whole range of animals.
Kelp is hardy and adaptive, but the study found pollution, urbanisation and warming temperatures are becoming harder to cope with.
When these kelp forests are under threat, they become more fragmented, so these patches of kelp reduced in size and they also reduce in density.
What the research also found is the bigger the patch of kelp, the more chance it has of flourishing. It's a lesson these Tassie researchers will now put into practice when they try to restore giant kelp forests around the country in an effort to undo decades of damage.
So a slightly different species, but one that's actually really under threat, especially in Tasmania, where we've lost about 95% of these kelp forests over the last few decades.
The local team will partner with recreational fishing groups and an American not-for-profit organisation to help bring back to life a critical piece of the ecosystem's puzzle. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian comedian Hannah Gadsby has announced a new tour. Her stand-up show Douglas follows on from the award-winning Nanette, which was performed to sold-out audiences across Australia and the UK. Douglas will include Gadsby's first tour of the United States when it's performed in 13 cities after a premiere in Melbourne late next month. Essendon legend Kevin Sheedy has been made patron of the club's Tasmanian supporter group, the Van Diemen Dons. Sheedy came up with the name for the group when it was launched in 2016. The club legend, who coached the Bombers to 4 premierships, is hoping to build local support.
Building a club heading towards our 150th year in 2 years is going to be one of the most exciting times I've had at Essendon in the history of my 30 years that I've been involved with the Bombers.
The only time Essendon has played a regular season game in Tasmania was against Fitzroy at North Hobart Oval in 1992. The Tasmanian Community Fund is celebrating the significant milestone of granting more than $100 million to different community groups. The organisation provides funding to support a range of projects and programs, including the Friends of Randalls Bay Coast Care Group and for the Windward Bound Group.
So we're very grateful for the Tasmanian Community Fund. We would never have been able to undertake such a project without them.
It's just enabling us to change lives and get kids get a chance to realise that they can get on and do things that they otherwise might not have had the opportunity.
The organisation started 19 years ago and has provided funding for almost 3,000 projects. The Royal Flying Doctor Service is further expanding across Tasmania, with services soon to be in the south and on the east coast. The organisation will now provide primary health care, including mental health and dental services on Bruny Island, the Huon Valley and the Tasman Peninsula.
Here in Tasmania, it's really isolation and access, and I think that isolation, especially in terms of mental health, can be twofold. You know, it makes the problem worse and it's harder to treat.
We have still, I would argue, one of the best universal health systems in the world, but if you can't access the service, it's difficult, and hence we've got to provide those outreach services, and that's our expertise, and that's been our expertise over 90 years.
The service has been running in northern Tasmania for 60 years. One of the nation's largest fashion retailers has chosen to launch its new collection in Hobart, ditching Australia's big cities. David Jones has taken over Mona for 2 days, starting with a gourmet lunch today, launching its campaign, The Art of Living. International models showing off the latest trends in lifestyle and fashion for this coming autumn and winter.
The whole program around the art of living Tasmania absolutely encapsulates that. So between our premium cultural experiences, our top-notch food and beverage, and obviously our rugged beauty, it's a perfect backdrop for such an event.
We chose a location that could bring both fashion, food, dining and wellness, and no better place than Tasmania.
A runway show in Mona's museum itself will top off this evening's events.
The Hobart Hurricanes are hoping their new international recruit can help them secure a home Big Bash final, with the side needing to win one of their last 2 games of the regular season to make it happen. With just one win separating the Canes from the Sixers and the Renegades on top of the BBL ladder, the race towards securing a home final is heating up.
It'd be great for our fans and also us to be able to play at Bellerive, but we only have to make the top 4 and anything can happen from there.
Looking to atone for last Thursday's 7-wicket loss to the Strikers at UTAS Stadium, Hobart faced the Renegades at Blunston Arena Thursday night, a side bolstered by the return of a couple of the country's best batsmen.
They've got bowling ticked off and they've certainly got a lot of power now at the top of their order. They get Harris back and Finch back. They were probably the guys that they were missing at the start of the tournament.
With the Canes' latest signing, Kayaz Ahmed, arriving in Hobart today, the 18-year-old Afghan leg spinner, widely considered as one of world cricket's rising stars, will be available for the clash. But Aussie Test skipper Tim Payne is unlikely to make a Big Bash return, despite now being free to play.
It's a good opportunity for him to have some time off, I think. More than physically, mentally, over a summer of Test cricket can take it out of you, especially while you're wicket-keeping and your captains.
The basketball and the Southern Huskies have begun their push towards selling out the side's upcoming New Zealand NBL matches in Tasmania, with 9 games set to be shared between Hobart's Derwent Entertainment Centre and Launceston's Silverdome throughout the season.
Make sure that we really deliver that, that epic night out of entertainment or afternoon out for families, and all the way from kids up to, grandparents, and that everyone just really wants to come back and gets the value for money.
Courtside seats for the games will become available later in the week, with general admission set to go on sale from next month. Up to 10,000 people are expected to turn out for this Sunday's Hobart Cup at the Elwick Racecourse, and punters can expect one of the strongest field the event has seen in years, with a string of local and mainland horses set to compete on the day, including talent from the world-famous Godolphin Stadium.
One of the leaders and the biggest stables in the world, and we've finally been able to get them to come on board, and it's fantastic. And there was no lure. They saw the carnival for what it was, and they said, we're going.
Organisers have also put an emphasis on the entertainment factor this year, with Daryl Braithwaite set to perform on the main stage.
It's really about the experience now. Obviously what goes on track's fantastic, but to complement it with the entertainment off the track is really important, and that's what both organisations have been working on. So we're looking forward to a big day.
This year also sees the return of the Cup double bonus, with $50,000 on offer for the trainer and owner, who can take out both the Hobart and Launceston Cups. The barrier draw for the Hobart Cup will take place tomorrow. Tasmanian golfer Simon Hawkes says his body is now pain-free ahead of his title defence of the Victorian Open. After playing with a back injury in recent months, Hawkes says he has largely recovered thanks to some rest over the Christmas break. There's an extra incentive for Hawkes to go back-to-back. It will be the first time his parents will see him play in a professional tournament.
The last time they would have seen me play was probably when I was a 16-year-old junior. You know, they used to kind of take me to all the junior tournaments, things like that, like a lot of parents around Australia do, you know, to help their kids, you know, develop their golf games and everything like that. So it's kind of really nice for them to come and see sort of the fruits of their work, really, you know, all the sacrifices they made, you know, when I was growing up, and it's kind of good to show them, you know, it's all kind of paid off.
The Victorian Open begins on Thursday.
Good evening. A real contrast between the north and south of the state today. Hobart 16 degrees with temperatures 10 degrees warmer in Launceston. Burnie 23, Devonport 24. A little drizzle over the east and southeast today. Not enough to bother the scorers though. King Island reached 25 degrees, Strawn 24. Flinders Island and Smithton 23. Low Head a top of 22 with St Helens on 19. Friendly Beaches 18 today. Lyawini 17. Grove and Ooze 16. Low-level cloud over us today, the thickest over the east of the state. You can see that swirling around there. A frontal cloud band sits over eastern Victoria and the Tasman Sea. Patchy low cloud is over the Bight. Thunderstorms are through western South Australia and southern Western Australia, the Gulf area, the top end and North Queensland with all the monsoonal activity. Tomorrow the high moves to our southeast with a low pressure trough over Western Victoria and New South Wales, and you can see all the other troughs and lows further north. Easterly winds over the north at 30 knots, northeasterly winds elsewhere at 20 knots with southerlies developing over western waters later. Strong wind warnings on from Sandy Cape to St Helens Point. Now for tomorrow, Hobart, a shower or two later in the day, a top of 25, 26 for Geeveston, 25 for Bothwell with that same forecast. Launceston, showers developing, 24 the top, 23 for Devonport, showers increasing over Cressy and 25. Burnie, showery and 22, 25 the top for Strawn, a late shower, 22 for Curry on King Island. And for St Helens, showers increasing, 22 the maximum, 22 also for Swansea and Orford. UV right across the state, mostly 10 and very high. On Thursday, rain across Tasmania, tending to showers late morning before easing, isolated thunderstorms in the mix. Fine and partly cloudy on Friday, maybe a shower for the west and possibly Flinders Island. And on Saturday, a shower or two with northwest to southwest winds. Mostly sunny and 35 in Perth. A humid day in Adelaide with a shower. Possible storm for Melbourne and showers forecast for Canberra, Sydney and Brisbane, and of course wet further north. Cloudy in Hobart, 16 right now, still warm in Launceston, 22 at the moment, and cloudy in Devonport and 22 degrees. That's the weather, Joe. Time now for Kitchen Rules, and I just can't believe it. All the insults and bad behaviour this year. It's just like a dinner party at your joint.
Only if you're there, Murph. That's all from the news team for now. Thanks so much for your company. Bye-bye.